Spain looks to be heading for snap elections linked to a failed budget deal. The minority socialist government is now facing defeat on a budget vote. It needs votes from two small pro-independence parties from Catalonia to get that deal through, but those parties have refused to back the budget unless Madrid promises to open talks about the region's bid for independence. Alfred Bosch is the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Catalan. He joins me now on the set. Thank you so much for coming in to speak to us. Now, both the pro-Catalan independence parties have confirmed that they're voting against this budget draft. Just break it down for us first. Why?
Well, it's Mr. Sanchez's budget. It's the Spanish government's budget. And we understand that he needs his budget. But he also must understand that we got to talk about other things. We have a deep political crisis in the Kingdom of Spain right now. And we want to talk about everything, not only about whatever is in the interest of Mr. Sanchez in power in Spain. So we want to talk about what's going on right now with these trials of people who have been in jail for more than 1 year without bail and are accused of up to 25 years in jail. Those charges are there, they've been laid. So we want to know what happens there. We want to know Mr. Sanchez's position regarding that, because the accusations were of organizing a vote. We think that's completely irregular and unacceptable. We also think that we should talk about the future, that we should talk about a democratic solution, and we think that just approving Mr. Sanchez's budget does not solve all this. So we want to talk about everything. We don't want to exclude important things which are on the table right now.
The greater issue, of course, for Catalonia is this idea of independence. But my question is if this budget vote is defeated, which it looks to be, the minority socialist government is going to have to call snap elections. If so, there's a good chance the Conservatives will come into power, the Conservatives who are against independence for Catalonia. Is that a smart move for the pro-independence parties to go to that?
Well, perhaps there could be a vote. We don't know. He can just renew the budget from last year. That's a possible move. In fact, Mr. Sanchez suggested that a couple of months ago. So he can do several things. Anyway, to blame on us the fact that the far right and that extreme nationalist movements are on the rise in Spain is not fair. That would be something like blaming the immigrants for the far right bashing on immigration and wanted to expel immigrants. If we are something, we are the victims. We are not those guilty of whatever is happening in Spain.
And yet Catalonia did get the ball rolling initially with the Declaration of Independence in 2017. There was a referendum that was voted in Catalonia that passed. Since then, many businesses have moved out of Catalonia. Can Catalonia ever really stand on its own? Or for you, is this just a symbolic independence that people there want?
Well, we're not better than any other nation, but we're not less than any other nation. So we do have our rights. And we have a right to decide about our own future, like Quebec had the chance to do, like Scotland had the chance to do. Nowadays, in a Western democracy, parliamentary democracy, we should be free to choose our own future. Because like Thomas Jefferson said, the world belongs to the living. It doesn't belong to the dead. It belongs to the living. We are alive. We want to choose our own future and the future for our kids, to know in which world they must live.
Even if that future could bring economic disaster, as some might argue?
We don't want economic disaster. There's been no economic disaster. And despite the deep political crisis which does exist, exports and imports have been on the rise. Investment is on the rise. Employment is on the rise. So let's not mix up things. Catalan society is prosperous. And fortunately, Spanish society is increasingly prosperous as well. And that's what we want. But we also want to be free people. And please don't tell us that if we want to be prosperous, we have to be chained up, because that equation doesn't work anywhere in the world.
Just before we go, I want to ask you about the trial you mentioned earlier about these 12 Catalan separatists that's on now in Madrid. One of your own party members, Oriol Junqueras, is the highest-ranking separatist who's facing 25 years now for rebellion. Does it bother you that yesterday Carles Puigdemont, so the self-exiled Catalan leader, told those on trial to stay strong while he's hiding out in Berlin?
Well, the fact that he's in exile, Mr. Puigdemont, has shown the world other things and contradictions which are extremely interesting, like the fact that the judges in Germany or in Belgium or in the United Kingdom, him and other exiles, have proven that they look at this question in a different manner, and that they think they shouldn't close them up, shut them up in a jail, that this should be discussed in the political domain, and this should be solved democratically with people voting about their own future. So that's an interesting angle, and the fact that they're in exile has helped the whole of Europe to see it in that fashion.
How honestly, just before we go, do you see this whole thing playing out? Will Catalonia one day become independent?
Well, that's why I'm in this thing. I do think that freedom will prevail, and I'm certain that we will be able to decide about our own future. Now, what will the outcome be? That depends on the people. It doesn't depend on me. Obviously, myself and my colleagues will insist that we can be a republic. We can create this new Catalan Republic, and that it will be positive because we are hardworking people, we are very much international and cosmopolitan, and we can survive very well in a global world.
Alfred Bosch, thank you so much for coming
You're
in to
welcome.
speak to us. You're the Minister of Foreign Affairs in Catalan. Thank you.